What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, February 13th, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my best buddy and co-host, Phil. Phil, I am in the opinion that the Monday after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday. What are your feelings?
I mean, even the people that don't like the Super Bowl or sports or watch it, I mean, who wouldn't like a nice day off? So, sure. I'm all for extra days off. I guess I'll put it that way. I don't care what it comes after. I mean, I see what you're saying. You're usually up a little later. You've had way too much food, so you don't really want to roll out of bed the next morning. And so I definitely hear you. And even, again, for the people that don't like sports, it's a free day off. So I sure, let's support more days off for everybody.
I'll even stand by the fact that even if it's just the East Coast, because the West Coast, their game's over by what, like 5, 6, 7 o'clock, they're good. I mean, the East Coast, it goes till close to 11 o'clock. Not fair. Yeah, I would rather just have the day off and not have to go to work. So if you support that decision, let us know on our Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and check for the time breakdowns in the description of the show because that is important for today. We will start with the Buffalo Sabres. Last week, and I know it's a bit old, but we have our Devil's Avocado on Friday, and I didn't want to just squeeze this one in and rush it, so we're going to talk about it now. So if you don't like it, deal with it, or just skip ahead. Dylan Cousins, 7-year, $7.1 average annual value deal. That means because the NHL is a bit oddball, I would call it, and I actually love it because whatever they sign at, even if they're making like $9 million this year and $6 million last year, it's whatever the average is what your cap hit is, and makes it so much easier on my little brain. But he's locked up for another 7 years, making a tiny bit less than Tage Thompson. I personally love the deal. Phil, what are your thoughts on it?
The biggest thing for me with these early contracts that the Sabres doing, I mean, there's a few things. There's one that you are proving to your homegrown in-house talent that we are willing to lock you up, pay you, and we want you here for the long term. We're not here to groom you and then ship you off to a different team. We want to keep this young, growing team together. And the other big thing is because these are earlier contracts, they're not as massive as they could be if these players hit huge a little bit down the line like a Skinner did with his massive deal and players like that. So I think the other big thing is for some reason, if Cousins, which we currently don't see happening, but for some reason he fizzles out at some point, I think the big thing is that the cap hit in general isn't huge. And because it's a player of his caliber and the players that they're signing early are the players that are, obviously playing really well and deserve this kind of contract, that's a player that even if it doesn't work out here, down the line, if you absolutely needed to, I think a trade would still be able to happen because other teams can see the promise that the player might have had. And again, maybe it didn't work for the Sabres and that player, but at that cap hit, it's not a terrible cap hit for a different team to take on if you needed to trade him. But in general, while he's still here and we love him and Dylan Cousins staying for 7 more years. And again, the big thing is just locking these younger players up, keeping this core together and proving to your other young players that are still up and coming that we are willing to pay you and want to keep this young homegrown team together.
Yeah, you locked up your number 1 center, your number 2 center for a combined $14.2 million. I'll take that every day of the week and run home with it because Tage Thompson his contract extension hasn't even set in yet, and he should be a $10, $11 million player with the pace he's playing right now. Dylan Cousins, at the growth that he's shown right now, he's already scored 4 more goals than his career high. He's already had 2 more assists more than his career high, and he's got 6 more points than his career high so far. And this is just his 3rd year. So if the trend continues, even if he's just a 50 to 60 point producer, everything else he does for the team, the extras playing against the other team's top line, shutting them down, he's going to be an $8, $9, $10 million player as well. So locking these guys up, I think both of them, I love the Kevin Adams model here. And this is what I think all GMs are kind of leaning towards. They're getting away from the bridge deals and they're signing these young guys early to these massive deals. Look at Sidney Crosby. He's been a 12-year deal for like $8.5 million. That's a steal. That's how you win titles. The Tampa Bay model. That's what you do. You lock up these young guys for cheaper, for longer. Yes, it's a bit of a risk if they don't pan out, but if they do pan out and your scout team and your general manager and your coaching staff and everybody coaches them up right and is scouting them the correct way, you're getting steals 4 years, 4, 5, 6, 7 of this deal when they should be making $2, $3, $4 million more than they're making. Locking these two guys up for long term, along with Matthias Samuelsson. You got Dahlin right around the corner, Owen Power right around the corner. What is Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka going to be doing? The biggest thing I'm interested in looking for moving forward is not so much who is the next guy getting the deal, because we all know it's going to be Rasmus Dahlin, but what is the cap going to look like? How much is it going to go up? Because the more it goes up, the more that's going to favor the Buffalo Sabres, because you're going to be able to retain these guys for longer terms. Because, I mean, you did bridge Dahlin, and it's going to probably come back to bite you right now, because he's probably going to be a $10, $11 million player. But I love the deal. Everything that he has shown on the ice right now, there's no reason to doubt he will slow down in his progression.
Yeah, that other last point you just made was the other point I was going to make, is that the cap should, in theory, as money continues to inflate, also go up as well. So these deals become more and more and more of a bargain as the contract goes on, and these players, arguably, like you said, with a bridge deal, could be making way more down the line. But with these, kind of team-friendly contracts, it seems like a risk, like you said, paying a player this early in their career. But if, the Sabres are doing what they think they're doing and, kind of know what this player might turn out to be. I mean, look at Tage Thompson. You went from possibly trading him to him being your number one superstar center. So it's things like that with the salary cap possibly going up down the line that these contracts will continue to get just more and more of a team-friendly deal. I mean, look at Josh Allen. When his contract first came out, it was massive. It was one of the biggest in the entire league. But as that kind of goes on, these monster superstar contracts for QBs continue to get higher and higher and higher. Eventually, that deal will look like a team-friendly deal down the line as well. So, love the model, like you said, of signing these younger kind of big-time players to earlier contracts, and it ends up being team-friendly. It's a risk for sure, but down the line, it should pay off.
So, Phil, well, I guess congrats to Dylan Cousins first. Huge, massive payoff, and love keeping him around for 7 more years. So we will move on to the game that was on Saturday versus the Flames. First time back since the All-Star break and their mini-bye. It did not go the way that everybody was hoping for. They lost 7-2. They actually held a 2-0 lead, and then the Flames scored 7 straight. Is this hockey or is this lacrosse, Phil? Well, very, very weird. But goals,
1 touchdown.
Tage Thompson, yeah, it's 1 touchdown, but it took, 40
touchdown and
minutes
a safety
to score. So the goals were scored by Tage Thompson, 35th goal of the year. Middlesay got his 8th UPL, 33 of 40 saves. Shots were 40-23 in favor of the Flames, not ideal, and their record currently sits at 26, 21, and 4 on the season, which is 51 games in, 31 games to go.
Yeah, sadly, this game is one that you're going to kind of have to throw out the window like you like to do with these kind of just bum of a game. I mean, after the big layoff, you kind of expected them to get off to a little bit of a slow start, not for the whole game, but maybe the first period, eating into the second period a little bit because it was a very long layoff. But with the Sabres starting 2-0 and up, I assumed that was kind of your, all right, we've settled in after a long break. We're already up 2-0. We're feeling good. You got the energy, you got the momentum. We can ride this out to a victory. And then the Flames just kind of pretty much, even with that 2-0 first period, kind of had control of this game the whole time. The defense looked real bad. They let in way too many just easy opportunities for the Flames. The Flames just looked like the much better team in pretty much every aspect of this game. The Sabres, after that first period, just fell really, really flat, and the Flames came out and just took over and took the game from them. But, I mean, UPL probably wants a couple of those back, but for the most part, the Sabres just left him out to dry again, and it was just, like you said, it was a bad game coming back from the break. You kind of expected a game like this where you come out a little bit slow, but after that first period, I really thought, all right, they've settled in and we can kind of win this game, but the Flames really took it to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game was determined in the 4-minute and 22 stretch in the second period when the Flames scored 4 of their goals. And they just went on an absolute tear that time and just pushed the Sabres' nose in it. The first period seemed like it was a very well played game. Sabres were on top of it 2-0, and then the second period happened, and it seemed like the Flames just started pushing around the Buffalo Sabres. And I completely understand the Flames are one of the top teams in the West, but it's a very weird team that the Buffalo Sabres are. They're playing very well against Western teams, but on the Western road trips. When they come into Buffalo, it seems like It's weird. Buffalo travels to the West well, and then the West travels to Buffalo well. It's a very unusual concept.
It's the opposite of what should happen.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what should be happening. Your long travel should pay, effect on your play, and it doesn't. And they come into Buffalo, it was almost a sellout, 96% filled arena. You could hear it on the broadcast. They always claim that they play better with a lot of fans, and it was just a dud of a game. And I understand there was a long layoff, but you did use it to get healthy. A lot of them bonded on, I think they were in Miami or Florida or whatever. It was all the Instagram stories of all these young guys hanging out together. So I'm hoping that this is not a start of something, and like you said, just a bad game to throw it out the window. But it's not like a Sabres team to, at least this year, to start off 2-0 and then just give up 7 straight. That's not what happens to this team. So I'm hoping that they can nip it in the butt on Monday when they travel out west. And, they seem to be playing very well, like I said, out west, and they're on a road trip starting Monday.
I'm only bringing this up because we've talked about it on, I believe, the old podcast we had. You still love saying nip it in the butt, and that is not.
I'm going to keep doing it. It's going to be a t-shirt. Put it on a t-shirt.
It is not the saying. And we discussed this a long time ago. It's nip it in the bud, but that's all right. We will continue to carry on. Hopefully the Sabres, I guess, nip it in the butt and they start to get a win streak going back and kind of write the season away. I mean, their wild card watch, they're starting to slip a little bit with some of those games in hand, but obviously they're still right there. It's a season where we didn't really expect them to be anywhere near this, I don't think, by the All-Star break. There was obviously hope into every single season that you're kind of still fighting for a playoff spot after the All-Star break, but at the same time, there's hope, and then there's, seeing it on the ice. So I don't think they're anywhere near far out of it, but at the same time, they got to really start stringing some wins together if they want to stay in the hunt.
Yeah, good transition here. We'll move on to the wild card watch, and then we'll hit back on the BSC. But I didn't want to avoid that nice transition you gave me. 7th place, Washington, 54 games played, 62 points. 8th is Pittsburgh, 52 games played, 61 points. New York is in 9th, 56 games played, 60 points. Florida, 55 games played, 58 points. And Buffalo sitting in 11th, 51 games played, 56 points. So if you look at that, all 5 of those teams, Buffalo has the least amount of games played, but they're also last in the points there. You need to take advantage of these games in hand. You tried to do it when Pittsburgh was, at the 50-game mark. You were trying to get to the 50-game mark and win that one. You could have tied them right before break, and they dropped that one. And then this one, they dropped this one. So if you at least even go in your next 4 games 50-50, you win 2, you lose 2, you're able to jump New York and Florida. And then you're sitting, like a few points behind Pittsburgh and Washington. So you need to take advantage of these games in hand that you have. You can't give them up, because currently if you drop the next 4, which I don't think the Sabres will do because that's not the type of team they are, which is weird to say after 11 years, but you got to take advantage of the situation you're in. You got 2 early games canceled because of the weather. They got pushed to the later season. You can use that to your advantage. But Phil, BSC update, it's as close to the 100 mark as you can get. 1582.72 to 1782.55. So I'm up by, what is that? 199.8. 8 something. It's pretty impressive. But I'm just tooting my own horn here. You scored 6. I put up 6.5. Are you making any changes to your team?
No, I think we're still good. We're hanging in. Sabres are finally giving me a little something. I mean, only losing by half a point in the Sabres, that's positive for my team. So I'll take it.
As you should. But they face the Kings hang on. They face the Kings on tonight. Yeah, I'm killing this right here. They are traveling west. They face the Kings on Monday night, which is tonight, and at the Ducks on Wednesday. You need to take at least 2 of those possible 4 points. If you can take both of them, it's looking good. Like we said, wildcard watch, you need to take advantage of these games. But Phil, it is time to finish up the epic conclusion, the finale, if you will, of our Devil's Avocado. People loved it on our Friday show. So let's continue it. If you haven't listened to my Instagram post, it's one of the best ones I've ever posted. I loved it. I was like, there's got to be an Avocado song. And there was. So I loved it. So I had to just toot my own horn on that one. But we'll start with the Buffalo Sabres here. I'm going to keep doing it. The Buffalo Sabres here. First question, as we'll go over it in case it's the first time, and then you can cut back and listen to the Friday show because it doesn't go out of style. What we do, we have 2 questions for each topic, the Sabres and the Buttes, and it's somewhat of a debate. I guess Friday we got a little critical conversations here where it wasn't as much of a debate rather than just fighting for your side. Maybe we can turn it more into a debate here. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But there's 2 questions. Phil's got the coin. He flips it. We each take turns calling it in the air. If you're right and it lands on the side you call, you get to pick if you want to fight in favor of that or against it. So our first question here, Phil, do you have the coin lighted up as I talk this out?
Coin is lined
up. The goat head. Okay, we're perfect then. The goat head. The famous goat head that the Buffalo Sabres have been playing with as their alternate jersey this year was the best Buffalo Sabres jersey of all time in the history of their franchise, which is 53 years old now. So, Phil, would you like to call it on the air first, or you want me to?
You get first call.
Okay, I will go heads once again.
All right. It is in the air, virtually flipping, and it's tails. You
okay? You
have lost. I'm gonna go. Oh man, it means I gotta fire away right away. But I'm gonna go pro.
Okay.
I'm gonna go in favor. Whew. All right. Man, Sunday morning is killing me right now. So, the goat head jersey, we're in favor of it. I know the biggest, I think, argument against it would be that it's simply not the classic blue and gold that we are used to with the Sabres. And I think that's pretty much where the argument against it kind of ends. Other than that, I honestly love the black and red and white. I love everything that it looks like. The goat head is, I know it gets a little bit of mixed reviews as to, I mean, we call it a goat head and, there's the Buffalo Sabres. So it gets a little bit mixed reviews as far as what the logo is. They've had worse ones, and I mean, we'll get into the slug maybe a different time. But other than that, I mean, more for you and me, I guess, and nostalgia, and even coming back this year, I mean, look how absolutely incredible they're playing in it. They love playing in it. I think they've lost, 1 game maybe since wearing the alternate jersey this season. They were on a huge win streak while wearing it and putting up a ton of goals. Obviously, the team loves it. The fans love it. And it was just, again, for us and nostalgia purposes, it was one of the greatest times we can remember being a Sabres fan. All the playoffs they made, which seems like ancient history at this point with the times that we have not made it. But the playoffs, the series that they had, I mean, it was the only time they were in the Stanley Cup final. And I mean, twice, sorry. One of the more recent times of the 2 times they have ever made the Stanley Cup final, one that we can actually remember. And it was another time they were first in the entire league. Just the nostalgia that kind of comes with the Lindy Ruff age, everything, the emotions you can kind of remember while they were wearing those jerseys, everything that was happening. The team was super excited. The arena was packed. It was amazing. And I think just as far as the jersey goes, it reminds you of those incredible times. Again, it's not quite the blue and gold, but I love the different kind of style that it is with the black, with the white, with the red. And I think the players just love it. The team loves it. It's an amazing looking jersey. It's very different, but it's a lot of fun. And for the longest time, I loved watching on the Jumbotron where you had the smoke coming out of the goat head nose every time they scored. It was incredible. And it's a great jersey. Super glad they brought it back. And again, the team and fans seem to love it this year as well.
I want to put a twist on this. I think the only legitimate reason that we as fans love the goat head is because of what the team was around that goat head. Like you said, they made the finals and lost to Dallas in the kick and goal by Brett Hull. You can't tell me it wasn't. He wasn't in the crease. He was in the crease. It was video evidence. He was in the crease. Shouldn't have counted. Either way. Then the second time was that beautiful run in the 05-06 series. And then the following year, they switched jerseys. I think the real reason that, like I said, the only real reason that I think everybody loves the goat head, besides, the black and the red and the white, it's a great collection of colors. You look kind of like the devil, scary on ice and all that kind of stuff. But I think it was because of the team that wore it. I don't think it was the actual jersey itself. I think if they had worn the goat head or the slug longer, the slug with the weird shape, the logo that I don't understand who designed it, and it went through all the process and got the okay. But if they had worn that from the glory years the whole time, I feel like everybody would be more in favor of the slug rather than the goat head. And now that I'm looking at all this, There's been some bad name logos because of the design here. The goat head, the slug. My God. And then there's the Turd Burger jersey also that I have a Cody McCormick jersey of. But I think the best jersey was just the classic royal blue. I think that's when they came into the league. They were wearing the royal blue. They're back to the royal blue now. It's got your crest on it. I think it's not a true logo and a true jersey unless you have your official logo on the front of the jersey. It's just, when we were the goat head. Yes, that became the logo, but I think everybody really associated the Buffalo Sabres with the buffalo, with the two crossed swords, the giant circle. I think that's the true Buffalo Sabres jersey, and I think moving forward, because that's the jersey now, as the Sabres progress and keep getting better and back into the playoffs and hopefully bring home that cup one day, that the jersey they're going to be wearing is the crest that they have now. And if that's true, I think it's going to overtake everybody's thoughts and opinions on the goat head. The further away we get from the goat head and the more success this team has, I think the goat head will be like that figment of everybody's imagination of what it used to be and now what it is. So I think the jersey is more based on what the team was doing on the ice at the time rather than the jersey itself.
See, the only reason I would disagree with that is I feel like we'd have slightly fonder memories of the slug jersey because that was the last time we remember them being good. I mean, they were first in 06-07 and 9-10, 10-11, lost in conference quarterfinals twice, and that was the last time we made playoffs. And even during that time, I mean, even the 2 years they didn't make playoffs, they were still exciting. And that was just right after the goat head. They were that, youthful, fun, high energy, different type of hockey, going away from the bruising style into the speed, the youth, and everything kind of exciting with hockey. And the slug, I don't know, it's a slug, and I feel like it's not fondly remembered, despite the fact that they were in playoffs, made some noise, and I mean they were good for a little bit when they had the slug jersey, and oof, what a jersey it is. I don't know if they will ever. I mean, the goat head, like you mentioned, like kind of moving away from it, but this year they brought it back, and now they're playing incredible hockey and motivated hockey for some reason while wearing it. I don't know if they'll ever truly get away from that kind of nostalgia. I hope they never bring the slug back reimagined or anything. I don't know. I feel like that would get some disapproval the NHL has seemingly pretty strict rules as to when you can bring an alternate jersey in, and if the Sabres organization decided to use that time for the slug, I think that would be a little rough. But even moving forward, I don't know, like you said, I don't know if we ever get away from the current crested logo. I can't imagine them. I mean, I'm sure people thought the same thing when we had the goat head and they reimagined it to the slug, that they kind of recreate a whole new logo at some point down the line. I mean, hockey seems to do it more than any other sport, I would assume, right? Like, I don't know any other sport that changes their logos as frequently as hockey does. Not that it's a lot, but I mean, the Bills have been the Bills forever. I mean, the Yankees are just the Yankees, and there's teams that just don't ever change their logo. But I mean, I guess maybe the NLL as well, but that's a different kind of animal over there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get away from the slug as a potential alternate, and then, or the goat head as an alternate, and then currently the crest that they have gone back to. I don't know if we'll get away from their current jerseys for quite a while. Yeah,
so if what we always do, are you the ripe or the mushy avocado? Let us know on our social media sites who won that argument. And I understand about the slug being, it should have been higher if you're basing it on mine, but I just don't think it was around long enough because it was such an ugly logo. But we'll move on. Second question. The Buffalo Sabres, this current team, with the trade deadline coming up on March 4th, should make a big splash before the deadline to try to push this team into the playoffs that they haven't seen in 11 seasons. Phil, call it and flip it.
I'm going to go heads, and it is it's flipping. It's flipping. It's flipping. It's tails. You got it.
I am going to talk in favor of the Buffalo Sabres making a big splash here. I know I have kind of gone away from trying to do that, but with the big signing of Dylan Cousins and knowing that the more these guys sign these contracts the long term and the numbers are locked in, the more you can try to figure out the makeup of the team and where you're going to be spending the money from now on. So now that you got your two top centers locked in for $14.2 million, which is unbelievable, I think you have some extra money down the line. Yes, you still have Jeff Skinner making $6 million, but Kyle Okposo's are making $9 million. I think I said that. You got Kyle Okposo making $6. Well, okay, then I fixed it. So you got Kyle Okposo making $6. You got Zemgus Girgensson coming off the boards. You got Ben Bishop's coming off the boards. Yes, he's still on the Sabres, making $4.4 million. All that money's coming off the books. Your salary cap should be going up soon. I think you have room to add a bigger piece or two. Alex Tuch's on the books for $4.25, I think, for the next 2 or 3 years. You're getting savings all over the place. Jack Quinn is probably going to get a bridge deal. You're probably going to get JJ Peterka on a bridge deal unless they take off kind of like Dylan Cousins has done. But the biggest two names that have been floating around are Timo Meier and Jacob Chychrun. I think both of those players, you're not going to get both. It's not going to happen. You're going to get one or the other. But I think a Timo Meier, where if you add him to this team, yes, he's probably going to be coming in and making about $9 million. He's got a $10 million arbitration case where, you got to, any team that wants him's got to pay $10 million. I think if you bring in a Timo Meier, he's only 26 years old. Right now, he's got 30 goals, 21 assists, 51 points on the season. He is a goal scorer for the San Jose Sharks. I think he would be the perfect addition to a team that on your second line currently, you're having to rely on two rookie wingers. If you add a Timo Meier to this rotation and add him to the Dylan Cousins line, you're not going to have to rely on those two rookies. Yes, you don't want to take time away from the developing rookies, but I think I said it in the last debate with the Devil's Avocado. Winning breeds success. You want this team to continue winning. You want to show that you have faith in them, that you believe in them to keep winning. What would it be like to add a Timo Meier to this team? Another goal scorer, another bruiser, another guy that can set up assists. Get Dylan Cousins another scoring winger on his team, because, Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka, as great as they can be and the potential that's there, you haven't really noticed them in the last 2 months you date back to when they had to get up in the press box just to take a back seat, and then Jack Quinn scored, and you're like, okay, it's going to get going again. When was the last time they scored? Besides that, it's been a while. So I think adding a guy like Timo Meier from the Sharks, yes, you're going to have to be giving up some pieces, but with the youth that's in this organization right now, it's similar to the Buffalo Bandits, where you had to cut a Colin Monroe, you had to cut a Nick Miller, just because of how vast and deep your team is. You don't want to end up in that situation. Yes, NHL, you don't want to actually cut these guys. You got 50 roster spots, 23 active roster spots, but I think adding a guy like Meier would change the dynamic of this team and push them over the edge. Islanders added somebody. The Capitals are finally getting healthy. Pittsburgh's looking to add somebody. You can't be left in the dust because you're afraid of making a move. And I know Kevin Adams said he's going to be calculated. He's not going to make a move just to make a move. You don't want to push yourself behind the 8 ball here, but eventually you got to go for it. It's been 11 years. You want to pack the house, bring these fans back. What other way to pack the house and bring these fans back from 11 years of just nothingness than adding a big piece in the trade deadline and going, hey, we believe in these guys. We're going to push forward and try to make the playoffs and end this drought.
I would love for everything you said to happen.
I know it's not going to.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. And I would love for them to go out, move some things around, add a piece. There's a few negatives toward it. For me, it's not even, their salary cap is interesting down the line. It's hilarious to me at this point. Hilarious kind of in a negative way, but ironically funny that, it's no offense to Jeff Skinner. It's not his fault that he went out and got paid, but he's making $9 million for the next couple of years, and you got Tage Thompson and Dylan Cousins both at 7.1 for years and years and years, and it's interesting. But that's nothing against Skinner. It's not his fault. Go and get paid. He did what he did, and he's still playing really well. So as far as this argument goes, though, I think it's going to be tough to acquire anybody simply for the fact that this team is still building, and I know this has been exciting, and we've been almost, pretty close to a full year of exciting hockey for the Sabres. Dating back to the end of the year last year when they were starting to make some noise. Finally, this team was growing together. We knew they weren't going to make playoffs, but they were still playing exciting hockey, looking fun, looking like a team that has a chance to make playoffs this year. And look at that. They're in a position where they have a chance to make playoffs this year. But at the same time, Adams has been all about slow rolling this entire process. And I think that's exactly how you have to be. It's not necessarily a negative toward the team. I don't think it would negatively affect anybody if the Sabres don't make a move at the trade deadline. I think the team kind of understands where they're at, what they're doing. They're excited to be in the playoff race, but at the same time, they understand the business side and understand how this works. And I feel like, I mean, as any player can, you can look back at the last 11 years of what went wrong for the Sabres, and so much of it was acquiring the wrong players too soon, too early, and then going on to pay off bloated contracts and then just sink the Sabres for a long time. And this time around, Adams is making it very slow, doing it internally for the most part, re-signing your young players, keeping this team very young, keeping this team together. And that's the only other negative of bringing a player in is, does it hurt anybody else's development, like a Jack Quinn, Peyton Krebs, JJ Peterka? Does it hurt their development if you bring someone else in, you knock one of those players down to the third line? Does that hurt their overall trajectory of their career in the future, which is really where the Sabres are aiming? I mean, even if they make playoffs, I absolutely love everything you said. I mean, even just talking about playoffs is exciting. The idea of making playoffs, even if they're out the first round, I don't really care. End the drought, get to playoffs, get some exciting games back in Buffalo, get the fans excited. Love that whole aspect, but they're a long-term team still. They are not ready. I mean, if they randomly won the Stanley Cup, that would just be ridiculous. But they're really, truly not ready to make that kind of push. The top teams in the league are still far ahead of the Sabres just as a team. This is one of the youngest teams in the entire NHL. We know it. They're still growing. They're not really ready to make that kind of a push. If they make the playoffs, that'd be incredible. But for the most part, this is still a team looking far, far into the future for what they need to do. And as much as I would love for them to make a trade deadline acquisition to kind of push this team into playoffs, give them a little something to really drive the rest of their season, I just think this team is looking so much farther into the future than they are this season. And again, I get the developmental aspect of getting these players a taste of playoffs. I love it. As a fan, I love it, but I just don't see them making a move unless it is a golden opportunity. I mean, we know the trade deadline can get kind of interesting with how some of these trades go down. So if nobody's offering what the Sharks want for a player like that, and the Sabres can swoop in and make some kind of pretty good trade that, you know, Adams thinks in the long term just benefits the team as a whole, then by all means go for it. But I don't see him coming anywhere close to overpaying this season.
Yeah, I don't see it happening, but if you want to put some more seats in the building, or put keisters in the building, Phil.
Again, I'm 100% for it. I
can't see it happening. I think it's going to be a minor deal.
And the only reason I'm really just against it at all is because, again, just does it hurt the development of the team? And more importantly, this team is much more of a future off-season acquisition kind of team. Fill out your roster in the summer when you have a lot of time to look at free agents, look at maybe other trades. But more importantly, we have two very young players whose rights we need to get the fluff off this team before we lose them for nothing like we've done, sadly, in the past.
Yeah, I think that will be. I think Kevin Adams should be on the phone.
I don't care what you get. Just get anything back for that.
Yeah, I think Kevin Adams should be on the phone daily with them. Hey, how you feeling? Are you thinking about putting on the jersey? Do you want to be? Is it the blue? Is it the blue? We'll play in Goat Head War.
Right.
I think he's got to be on the phone.
Send him a
with
slug.
them.
Be like, all right, is it this one? Do you want the slug?
How about this one?
We
How
can
about
do
this
that.
one? Yeah, we just went over the jerseys. There's plenty of jerseys options. Does your name look better on this one? How about this one? You want a number that's retired? We'll do that. But I think he needs to figure out if they're coming here. If they're not, send them out the door for whatever you can get, because it's better to have a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick, a 7th round pick than these guys just going to free agency and signing willy-nilly. So we'll dive into that. The deadline's coming up quick. So we'll as the trade deadline comes up quicker, it'll be more steam and me calling for more things that I want to happen that probably won't happen. But ripe or mushy avocado for that debate. And we'll move on to our final debate team, the Buffalo Beauts. And this is our newest team that we've been covering. We're still not fully through a full season yet. We didn't even go through a full off season for this team because we started following them in the preseason right before their season kicked off. So for Phil and for PK here, Please take everything we say with a grain of salt because we're not talking about expertise here. We're still learning the game ourselves and the league ourselves and the team ourselves. So no hard feelings whatsoever. It's a podcast. It's fun. It's a fun thing to do. So Buffalo Buttes here, Phil. The first question, the current head coach and GM are the right combination to get this team back on track and looking towards another cup contending team and a team that can compete for the title year in and year out.
All right, you got to call it.
I do have to call it, and tails never fails, so we'll go with tails.
I was already flipping it, and it's tails.
Yeah, see, it never fails. I am going to say I'm going to fight
of the
against
time.
this. I'm going to go against this. I'll give you the favor of it. You can defend the head coach and the GM right now. I will fight against it. I'll be the bad guy.
All right. Did not want to start off this argument either way. So the Buttes, they are, oh man, this is tough. They're currently just not having a very good season, and the head coach and GM have been here for a few years now, and last year they didn't finish very well. This year they're not looking very good. But at the same time, as far as the GM goes, we brought in a pretty solid crew of players. I mean, in a league this small, I mean, hopefully it continues to grow, but there's a lot of talent out there, but it's about finding the right talent to put together, but at the same time, finding a player like MGM, getting her away from Toronto, which was incredible, and she was obviously incredible there, but finding a player and being able to swing them to your team is not easy. Getting Newton in, an Olympian, is not easy. So a lot of the pieces, and we've seen sparks from this team, and they've played in a lot of really close games against the top talented teams. They've been battling as much as they possibly can. So it's also about chemistry, but at the same time, I feel like the roster itself is very talented. So then you kind of go over to the head coach, and I think the biggest thing in favor of the head coach right now is we've seen progress throughout this team throughout the entire year. I mean, they've continued to, again, battle and play better. We are seeing them starting to focus on some of the smaller things that were hurting the team. This league is a little strange with the amount of time off they have, and I think that is not good for a young team still trying to develop with all these new players, a different kind of roster, and really grow with chemistry. I mean, one of the biggest things in hockey is simply chemistry. We talk about line chemistry all the time. I mean, look at Kruger for the Sabres had the worst line chemistry, I don't know, we've ever seen in our lives, putting a player like Jeff Skinner way down on the fourth line, punishing him for we don't know what reason, but it's things like that. I mean, hockey takes a long time to develop chemistry, to figure out which lines go together, which players go together. It's not simply left shot, right shot, center. It's a lot that goes into it. So I think as this team has gone on throughout the season, we're slowly finding different combinations that work, different, fine-tuning the different things that work for this team, getting back to the basics, and we've seen development. I think with the amount of roster turnover they had in this offseason, I think they brought in a lot of really great pieces, but I think it's going to simply take time to put all of those pieces together. I mean, look at how much time Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott needed with that first original roster. I mean, it was yikes. I mean, we don't even like looking at it ever again. But same with Kevin Adams and Granato. I mean, Granato wasn't the first guy there. He was an interim head coach and then became the guy because they did really well. But Adams has taken a little bit of time to turn this roster over. And I mean, we're still kind of in the middle of it. They're obviously still deep in their rebuild. I don't know if the roster is necessarily the problem, but there's still some fine tuning he needs to do to get this team back to playoffs. So I think more than anything, it's just going to take this current head coach and GM a little bit of time and figuring out what works best for the Buttes to get them back to the level they need to play at.
Okay, Phil. Here it comes. I'm going to throw out some numbers for you because I knew if I went second, I could throw some numbers out. So
you just wanted research time. That's not cool.
I can also fight on this behalf of my argument as well. But the GM has been a part of this franchise since the COVID year where it shut down. And, even if you want to take that out because they only played 6 games, whatever, you can throw that out. Last year, another struggling year. This year, another struggling year. Yes, they brought in a bunch of new fresh faces, younger team, but they also have some veteran presence, and they also have some players who have been around here. Phil, the combo, I understand the coach has been here one last year of the GM, but that 1 year is just the COVID year, so I'm going to add that into these numbers anyways. The last 3 years, including this year right now, they are 9, 30-3. They have been outscored 169-84. In those 42 games, they're averaging 2 goals for and just a hair over 4 goals against. So the other teams are doubling up what this team has been able to do on the ice. Yes, you can criticize what the players are doing on the ice, but I think the pieces are there, and I think and I completely understand. We were saying that the team looks better on the ice. They're doing better. They're going against juggernauts right now in Toronto and Boston. But there are times where you look at what happened when your head coach was suspended for 2 games, and that one game where they had an interim head coach, the team looked completely different, and they were going against one of the top teams in the league. So you can say that whatever you want. You can use it as a grain of salt, small sample size, but you can still say what happened in that game that we haven't seen the rest of the games with this head coach in charge. I am usually a little bit more lenient towards the GM to get it right. I think that all the leagues are, head coaches are fired before the GM gets a second opportunity, but I think with the last 3 years where you're only putting up a team that's putting in two goals a game and giving up over 4, there needs to be changes from the top down, and it's time to start thinking, are these the right people in charge to turn this thing around? I am in favor of looking, maybe seeing what else is out there and comparing them to what you have now. Again, we've only been covering this team for 16 games now, so who are we to be talking about this? But we're giving our opinions as part of the Devil's Avocado. I am in favor of looking elsewhere and trying to bring in a different combo of GM and head coach to try to turn this team around. That is nothing against what they've been able to do on the ice. A lot of fresh faces, like we said, a young team, but at one point, you got to start looking, is this the right combination to lead a younger team towards where we want them to end up being? And I would be in favor of switching it up and trying to find a different combination to see if that works, because it's easier to switch out 2 people than the 20 on the ice.
Yeah, sadly, with the current stats they're rocking, it's going to be pretty hard to allow one more year. I'm in favor of one more year and see what they can do, see if this team can gel. Like we said, they are playing better, see how the season ends. I mean, we still have 8 games left in the year, so they have a chance to string off a series of wins and maybe look like a completely different team a little bit after, once again, another week off. I mean, the weeks off there's a lot of weeks off in this season, but I think it's going to be an interesting end of the season. But for the most part, I mean, not knowing what their playoff system is, because we still don't know what that looks like. But I think the end of the year will be very telling as to where this team, head coach, and GM are all headed.
Yeah, they got 8 games left, so that I think will be a big indication of what, if the team quits on them. Obviously, you got to,
especially
look
with
elsewhere.
who those 8 games are against. I mean, this is the
Right,
time
yes.
that if you can turn it around and shine a little bit, this is the time to do it. You're playing the bottom-ish teams. I mean, you're done with Boston, you're done with Toronto. Not saying these games are going to be easy. It's still a very competitive league. It's going to be a very difficult finish, but at the same time, you're finishing those last 6 games against the 4 bottom teams. I mean, the Buttes are one of them, so the 3 bottom teams ahead of the Buttes. So, I mean, if there's ever a time to really try to make a push, make a run, this is it.
So, Phil, final question here. And I think this goes to my love of spreadsheets and my love of having more information than the average fan to help with this podcast and just my sanity itself. Players' salaries should be made public. I'm not talking about, their like individual salaries, whatever, but length of time of contracts, that kind of stuff. Even if you want to just black out what they make, but like the years and, do they have no trade movements? Do they have any of that kind of stuff? I don't even know if there's trades in this league because I haven't dug far enough in. I don't think there are. I think there's just free agent signing. But I think giving more information to fans, like I've been saying for the NLL since this podcast came about, that more information to the fans makes the fans, fandom grow stronger. So players' salaries / contract lengths should be made public. Phil, you get the call and you get the flip.
All right. it's flipping. I'm going heads because it never fails or something. Um, what is the? Why am I blanking on the heads one?
I don't know if there is one.
There's one for heads.
Oh, I have no idea. I don't think I've ever
Tails
heard
never
it.
fails. Heads. Oh man, this is embarrassing. This is gonna have to be cut out, I think, because we don't. What is?
Well, while you're flipping, I'll look this up.
It was tails, and I got it wrong. So you're up, and heads. Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna
definitely
fight
one for heads.
in favor of this, so you can look it up as I fight for this.
Yeah, this is painful for me.
So player salaries and contract length should be made public, and I am going to reference everything I said for the NLL. I know there was talk when the contract was signed with the CBA that they were going to try to make all that stuff public. I don't care how much exactly you're making. You can even black that out, like I said. You can erase what the team's making. I don't really care the makeup of that because the cap space and the salary cap is much smaller in these type of leagues, which makes sense. It should be higher so you can have more paying jobs and these players can have these as full-time jobs. I completely support that. But I don't really care about your individual salaries. I just want to know how long you're signed for when you become an RFA, when you become a UFA, all that kind of stuff, the inner workings of that kind of stuff, because it helps smaller podcasts like this. It helps you grow your sport when fans are able to dive more deeper and become more of a fan of your league. When the NLL got on ESPN, we said that's a huge, huge thing. When the PHF got on ESPN Plus, we said that was huge to the league. You're getting this sport and these leagues in front of eyes that typically wouldn't see it. I mean, there's no way I'm able to travel to all of the away games for both of those sports. You're got to rely on just box scores, and box scores only tell you half the story, because barely half the story, because you can look and say, hey, they just won 7-2, and then look at it and go, well, a lot of those goals went one way or the other. But I think adding another incentive to these smaller leagues to grow your sport and make people more fans of it and be able to dive deeper in, you're going to get podcasts like this. You're going to get people that are passionate about your teams and passionate about the league you're in and passionate about the sport. And you can grow it and use that more as incentive to bring more fans in at a younger age. And even the people like us who are, I'll call myself middle-aged, Phil, because I'm probably going to die young. But you can reach further audiences with more information. How much have we said? More content. We want more content out of these smaller leagues. More and more and more, so you can get eyes. That's what we preach here. The more content we put out, the more likely it is somebody's going to spot us. I think that's the same way that you can be more creative in the offseason. Okay, this player signed for another 2 years. This player signed for another 1 year. What are we going to be doing here? Do we want this player back? Is this player going to be going elsewhere because they're a free agent? More of that information will bring more talking points, and in the offseason, when your league's not happening, the games are not happening, there can still be talk about your team and your league, even though the sport on the ice is not taking place.
So in all that research, I didn't find anything. Maybe there is no.
I didn't think there was.
I'm trying to make one up on the fly. It's not going great. The best I kind of came up with is heads always hits the spread or something, but I got nothing.
We're going to have to keep thinking.
Yeah,
we're going to have to keep thinking.
We're going to have to make something up. How does heads not have anything? I really thought it had some kind of counterpunch, but tails just never fails, and that's it. I guess that is the end of that coin flip. All right. So my only real argument against it, and like you said, it's not always about exactly what they're making. It's about contract length as well, and just more information out there helps the fans kind of connect with the teams, connect with the league a little bit more. The biggest thing for me right now with the PHF and just simply what they have out there, I mean, I think injuries at the very bare minimum of what NHL even does with injuries, where just upper body, lower body, they're out for a certain time frame that nobody will ever know. I mean, at the very least, I think something like that should be happening with this league, like that kind of information. But as far as contracts go, salaries go, that kind of stuff, I think for me, currently we're with PHF is, I think until they get to a few more teams in the league, it doesn't really bother me that it is currently not public. I mean, they're telling us that the cap space has gone up to a certain number every single year, which is kind of really great to see the league grow in that way, and we can kind of keep track in a small way that way to see that the league is growing. It is making more money, which is great for the players. They all get to make more money as well. But simply having some of that information out there for the PHF alone, some of these other bigger leagues, I would like to see more information, but at the same time, that's why I'd like to see more information, because they're a bigger league. I think until the PHF gets closer to 8, 9, 10 teams, I really don't mind them keeping things a little bit more to themselves, because it's simply not a huge league yet. I mean, if they weren't in Buffalo, I don't know how much we would really follow it, simply because it's not a big league right now. I mean, we'd have to kind of pick a random team almost and try to follow them and just see. I mean, maybe probably wouldn't be Toronto or Boston. So, I mean, that's tough right there. But I think that's kind of why it doesn't really bother me too much at this point. If they end up getting to 8, 9, 10 teams, I mean, at the very least, can they tell us what the playoff system is this year? That would be incredible. So I do agree that certain basic things should always be public or made more public. So like you said, the fans can connect a little bit more to the league, to the teams, to the players. And I think there's just there should be some kind of general standard of, this set of information should always be public, and outside of that, it's up to the league's choice as to how deep they want to go with some of that information. But for how small the league is currently, yes, it's growing, which is great, but until they get to maybe 10 teams plus, I don't really mind them keeping some of the information to themselves. But at the same time, basic things like how the playoff system works for a league that we are down to, 8 games left, and it's already All-Star game over halfway through, and it doesn't even seem like some of the teams or players really know how the playoff system is going to work this year. That seems mind-blowing to me. That kind of general information I think should be out there, but certain stuff, because they're just a simply smaller league currently, I don't mind some of the stuff staying to themselves until they grow a little bit more.
Phil, what's the one thing I always say? Fake it till you make it. If you're prepared for it, you don't have to change your ways and grow with it. If you're already at that point, you don't have to adjust.
I mean, we're still... Is there a league that we don't complain about the information? Maybe just the NFL? Is that it?
Yeah, because I think NFL we complain about other things.
I feel like their information's pretty public, though.
Yeah, their information's really good. NHL's their information's pretty good. All the
their
big
injuries,
leagues, I feel like their injuries are really bad.
That's
especially
what I don't
now
like
that
about the
betting's
NHL.
around. Yeah.
He's going to be out with some random injury somewhere located on him, and he'll be back when we say he's back. How about that? That's pretty much.
I would also like to know
the
where the
information we
line
get.
is between the upper and the lower. Like,
Right, that's
is
fair.
it the waist? I would put it at the waist.
I would
but,
assume
like,
waist, because then you got
that's
just
what I think,
lower would be
too.
legs, upper would be like arms, face, chest.
What if it is your waist though? Is that lower or is
Like
that
if you got a
upper?
hip, I feel like hip's part of the legs.
But like hip is lower than your waist. What if it's just simply your waist?
What, he's got a stomach bug?
Maybe. Stomach's too high though. I'm just talking like right where your belt is. Like what
Right,
if
I
your
feel like
belt was
that's
too
your-
high and you got a rash or something there? What's that? Is that like mid body?
I guess, because I feel like, hips are your waist for the
Yeah.
most part, and that I would consider lower.
But I don't know. I guess I gotta.
But yeah,
I'm
if
gonna
they
find
give
a
us
dummy or
nice
a diagram.
Yeah, if they give us a diagram with just one line drawn across, this up, this down, lower, upper, and then a little bit more information on the timetables other than we'll tell you when he's
Eventually.
back, and by that we mean when he's on the ice in that active game and you see him out there, guess what? That's when he's back.
Day to day, because in a month
Everything's
from
day
now,
to
that's
day.
still a day. Yeah, there you go.
They go from week to week to, he's back tomorrow. Like, okay, that changed rapidly.
Yeah, the week ended. Yeah, there you go. There you go. But that will wrap up this segment and this show of the Devil's Avocado. Ripe or mushy? Let us know on our social media sites. Phil, is there anything else you want to add to this show before we shut it down for a work week? And finally, Friday, we got some previews and games to talk about.
Yeah, that's what I was mainly going to say. It's very interesting. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, that the Buttes, the NHL, the Bandits, obviously there's sadly no Bills to talk about today, but outside of that, the Buttes, Bandits, and Sabres all being off at the exact same time is interesting. It was kind of a fun little break for us, but at the same time, I'm pretty much just itching at this point to talk about some live action. So I'm very happy that we had two pretty much 2 episodes off, and the Sabres took a day off as well, so we are just going to skip through that game, and I'm happy that we get some good stuff coming back.
So on our next show, we got both Sabres games to talk about. We got a Buttes preview when they travel to Minnesota to take them on. And we have a Bandits back at home versus Philly that they're trying to get back on the, well, not even on back on the winning ways. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now, but there's a 3-way monster tie, 7-2 in charge of the East. And they need to slowly continue to put a dent and try to pull away a bit more than they are currently because, like I said, 3 teams, 7-2. Not ideal, but they're sitting pretty in the East top place. And with that, we'll move on. But yeah, it's going to be a fun next show on Friday. Like we said, the action is finally kicking back off, and it'll continue through hopefully April and into May. But Phil, with that, thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.